If you scroll through property content right now, you'll probably see a lot of stuff that just seems too good to be true. Someone holds up a set of keys and claims a £40,000 profit because they bought a house for 100 grand and sold it for 140. And look, sometimes they really did make that money, but usually they are confusing gross revenue with net profit. The person will tell you the purchase price and the sale price, but they'll almost never show you the finance line item or any renovation cost that needed to be included. I personally spent 7 years working in commercial real estate lending at a tier 1 investment bank, and if there's one thing I learned looking at hundreds of deals, is that leverage is expensive and the bank always eats first. Today I'm going to break down a typical flip deal to show you exactly how fees, interest and stress tests eat into your margin, and I'll show you why a good deal on Rightmove might actually be a loss maker once you look at the real numbers. Right, let's start with the basics. To flip a property here in the UK, you effectively have 3 options for financing it. Option 1 is cash. Obviously cash is king. If you have 150 grand sitting in a savings account or an ISA, you have 0 borrowing costs. You can move instantly and you have no monthly payments and you can sleep very well at night. But most of us, myself included, rarely have that kind of liquidity just sitting there doing nothing. So we need to think of ways that we can get money to then spend money. So most investors start with option 2, which is equity release. This is usually remortgaging your own home or taking a further advance on an existing buy-to-let. And it's usually the cheapest money that you can borrow, maybe 4 or 5% interest right now, and that's because it's asset backed. And from a lender's perspective, it's not much of a risk. But, and this is a massive but, you need to be careful with your own risk here. You are effectively securing a high risk asset, like a muddy building site, against a low risk asset, which is your family home or an already succeeding buy-to-let. So if the flip fails or the market crashes, the debt on your house remains. So while the rate is low, the risk is high. That brings us to option 3, which is bridging. It's a specific financial product designed for unmortgageable properties, like buying a house with no kitchen or bathroom, but the cost is significantly higher than most people realize. Now, I've made a dedicated video talking about bridging finance and going through one of my bridging finance offers. I'll link it up here. For a flip, it's what most people end up using. Now, before you go and sign up for a bridge, you have to ask yourself one simple question. Is the property habitable? If the answer is yes, and it has a working kitchen and a bathroom, even if they're avocado green and have a carpet from the 1970s, then you have cheaper options than a bridge. You might be able to use a tracker mortgage with a low ERC, a low early repayment charge. And this allows you to sell the property without a huge penalty. But banks ordinarily don't like you doing this before the term's gone. So if you do it a few times, they may stop lending to you. Even if you do that, there is a catch. Most lenders in the small print have a 6-month rule, meaning you can't immediately sell or refinance. So you need to hold that property for at least half a year. But to be fair, most renovations take more than 6 months anyway. If the property isn't habitable, then a normal bank will not lend on it. So in that scenario, unless you have cash or the equity release, you have to use bridging finance. It solves the problem, but it burns a lot of cash monthly. So let's look at exactly what that will cost you. A lot of new investors treat the headline interest rate as the only cost, and that's a mistake. When I analyze a bridge, I look at the total cost of credit. So first you have the arrangement fee, and that's typically 2% of the gross loan amount. This is added on day one, it's a sunk cost and you don't get that back. So on a £100,000 loan, that's £2,000. Secondly, the monthly interest, which is roughly 0.9 or 1% right now. I'm just caveating here that this is December 2025. I know 1% sounds pretty low, but remember that's 12% a year. Third is valuation fees. You have to pay for the surveyor to go out and validate the property. Sometimes on a residential mortgage, the banks will throw that in included as part of the product fee. But for bridging loans, you've got to pay it. And this might be £500 or so. Fourth is legal fees. And you might have thought, I knew that. I'm going to have to pay for a solicitor to do my mortgage, right? But no, there's a kicker to it. You pay for your solicitor and for their solicitor as part of the loan. So it's actually ×2. And then finally, some bridging lenders charge an exit fee just to let you pay off the loan. So many fees here, I'm running out of space. But when you add all of these up, your effective interest rate isn't 10 or 12%. It's often pushing 15 or 20%. So if your profit margin on the deal was only 20%, well then you're effectively working for the bank for free. Let's go to my office and dig into my spreadsheet to talk about this more. So I built a spreadsheet tool because I don't like doing mental arithmetic with 6-figure sums. And let's go through a standard scenario that I see all the time. Purchase price for a property listed at £130, we actually bought it for £120,000 at nearly an 8% discount. It's going to potentially take 6 months of renovation to get it where we want it to be, and that renovation will cost £25,000 just as a high level estimate. And then we're hoping that at the end of it we can sell it again for £170,000. Well, on the surface this looks like a £25,000 gross profit on the property value, and that's a great margin. But if you're just looking at the top line numbers, or you're doing this on the back of a napkin, then you'd probably sign this deal. You think you've made 25 grand. brilliant. But let's now toggle in the finance strategy. For this kind of deal, you'd expect to be using a bridging loan at 75% LTV. So you need a £30,000 deposit. And we've added in maybe a £2,500 product fee as part of the bridging loan. Fairly standard, I would say. And then with 6 months of renovation, you're probably looking about £1,000 a month of interest on borrowing this money. And then you've got the solicitor's fees to purchase the property too, plus the stamp duty land tax. And then whilst your renovation is going on for these 6 months, you've got council tax to pay and you've got utilities to pay too. And then if you decide to flip it at the end and sell it, that's another solicitor fee on top, plus probably the estate agent fees too. So let's see how that's affected our actual profit. Well, that 25 grand profit has dropped to just £7,000. And that's assuming a perfect execution. In my experience, and if you've seen any of my renovation videos, then you'll know this, things rarely go exactly to plan. So let's have a look at what happens when reality hits. Let's say the damp-proof course fails or you struggle to get a plasterer and the project drags to 9 months instead. Well, now we're down to £3,250 profit. So you've taken 120 grand's worth of debt, managed a building site and handled 9 months of stress for £3,250. That's less than minimum wage. And this is why I use my spreadsheet. It's just black and white. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't tell me how much I love the property. If the numbers don't work with the stress test included, then I don't buy the house. It's as simple as that. Now, before anyone panics, does this mean you shouldn't flip houses? Well, no, it just means that you need a system and you need a fail-safe. My golden rule for any flip that I do is simple. Never buy a flip that also doesn't stack up as a rental. We don't know what house prices will do next year. If the market softens and you can't sell for that £170,000 target, then you need an exit. And that exit is refinancing onto a standard buy-to-let mortgage and then renting it out and waiting for prices to hopefully increase. But, and this is critical, you need to check the rental yield before you buy to know that number is strong. If the rental income doesn't cover the stress test on the refinance, then you're trapped. You can't get the mortgage and you'll be stuck on the expensive bridging loan, paying huge interest every month with no way out. That is how people go bankrupt. So, run the numbers for both strategies. If it works as a flip and it works as a rental, then you have a safety net. So if you're finding videos like this helpful, do me a favor and hit the like button. It really helps the algorithm find other people who need to hear this truth about these costs. Property isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a business. If you treat it like a business, track your data and respect the leverage, then it works. And it can hopefully lead to an early retirement, which is what I'm targeting. If you want to play around with the numbers yourself, this spreadsheet I've used in the video is available on my website for free. I'll put a link in the description below. It's the exact one I use for my own limited company deals, and it includes the rental stress tests as well. Included on my website, there's a free viewing checklist as well. So if you're just starting out and you want to know what to look for when you're walking around damp houses, just take a look at that. And if you want to see how I analyze a deal that you keep long term, the BRRR strategy that I follow, I've got a detailed breakdown floating somewhere over here. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.